You are listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report, episode 138.6, the Combat Sports Report with Hanson Crafton, a card in Saudi Arabia that Hanson calls the greatest card in boxing history.
You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengels.
Welcome back, Hanson. Interesting day in the fighting world.
Yes, it was. Very interesting. You've got maybe the biggest, best boxing card in the history of the sport happening Saturday. And today, you had issues with the co-main event. Apparently, Daniel Dubois woke up feeling ill, and then he went and saw like a specialist, some type of specialist in Saudi Arabia. He was there for half the day. I remember I was actually on my lunch break, so it was after 1 o'clock, and I was just scrolling through the internet and I saw an alert pop up that said the fight was in jeopardy, that he had been seeing a doctor, and it sounded like that he wasn't gonna be able to fight, and they were looking for a replacement. So I was super bummed for at least 45 minutes to an hour,
Looked
maybe. I
like
was
it
just
wasn't going to happen. I mean, that's just too soon, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was for sure. Then so they had this press conference that was scheduled for 1:30, and it got pushed back. So then when they finally started with the press conference, they announced that it was Du Bois was out. He was for sure out, and that they were looking for an opponent. And the first three names they mentioned were just three guys that weren't really anything
Yeah.
exciting at all.
And if they do
And then
find somebody, it's going to be somebody he beats.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it was kind of just like, they had three options. It's kind of like, and, eh. So then, out of nowhere, alert comes out that Martin Bacoli's representative had been reaching out to Turkey and people in Saudi Arabia, and he was willing to jump on a plane and come to Saudi Arabia on 2 days' notice and fight. And then
Wow.
within 15 minutes after that, they announced that it's going to be Martin Bacoli. And so then I go from feeling down to on the complete other side because I'm a huge Bacoli fan. I've been wanting to see him fight again since his last fight. Um, so that was, I mean, to me, it's more exciting fight than the fight we originally had. And I think I speak for majority of the boxing fans. Just scrolling through Twitter after that announcement, there were a lot of people really excited about that, and it's got a lot of people's attention now. It was a good. It ended up ending better than you can when you lose a fight like that. It's so surprising that they was able to come up with a fight that many people think might be more intriguing.
The question I have is, you love a guy whose instinct is to say, "Hey, I'll do it," right? But
Yeah,
fighting a championship fight, fighting an event like this, especially in another country, it takes a, a particular focus of an opponent, of a plan, to peak at the right time, and you can't do that in 2 days. Does that concern you?
well, Bacoli had a fight already scheduled coming up, so he was
I
already
understand.
training.
I understand, but it's a particular focus on a particular guy that's very important to winning fights.
Yeah, I tip my hat to both of them. It's ballsy for both of them, especially Parker. I mean, Parker's looking at a world title fight, and then now he takes on maybe the most dangerous fight there is at heavyweight. He's fighting a guy that you make a mistake against McCollum, and you wake up with a flashlight in your face. I mean, that guy's got fighting and power. He can connect from, we saw in his last fight, he can connect from several angles. He throws uppercuts with both hands. He shoots the right hand down the middle and throws hooks from the side. It's a very dangerous fight. And then for Bacoli, he had a fight already scheduled. He could have just sat out and waited for that fight, put on another showing. Um, but he's taking a chance. Now, I feel like with him, it was more of a thing where he's had such a hard time getting fights. He wants to chase a title. And I think he kind of just like, I can't get people to fight me, so I'll just jump into this fight. And then if I win, they have to give me a title shot. So I think,
Yeah,
it's a
well, that's
huge risk,
true.
but huge reward for both guys.
But if I was a fighter and I was again, you completely respect the mentality of, I don't care. I'm gonna go there and fight him, and I'll beat him.
Right.
But man, every fight you lose in boxing is a hit to your reputation, except
Yeah,
for
you're
apparently
right.
Muhammad Ali. I don't know why the losses never stuck to Muhammad Ali, but otherwise, every single loss is a hit to your reputation, and you're taking a really big risk.
Yeah, it's a huge risk for both guys. Like I said, I hat off to both of them.
That's
I mean,
true. Good point.
it's a huge risk for both guys, and I like I said, I'm just glad that we're at a stage of boxing now where that can happen. Years
Oh
ago,
yeah,
you're not going to see a card like this anyways. And if a fight would have fell out like that, they would have found somebody in the audience to come out there and fight
that's
the
right.
guy. I mean,
That's right.
you just don't see what we're seeing today in boxing, and I'm super excited. Like I said, I was pretty pretty bummed out when I first heard that Du Bois was sick and that he was out of
Yeah,
the fight. And then I was extremely bummed out when I saw the three names they were looking at replacing. But then to end up with Martin McCauley in there, um, I mean, it doesn't save the whole card for me because you still have Beterbiev and Bivol, which is an all-world fight. Um, but it kept it with the same intrigue it had. Like I'm still super excited for this card Saturday afternoon now. I mean, I'm not going to get any sleep Friday night.
Hanson, I wrote down a question in my notebook here as you were talking. Did you say this is the greatest card of all time?
I think it has to be. I mean, it's seven title fights. I mean, you have um, great names on here. To start the card, I'm going with probably he's the biggest favorite on the card, Shakur Stevenson. He's going to be defending his lightweight title. Lightweight is 135 pounds. He's a huge favorite, minus 4,000, but he did have a late opponent to change. So he was originally scheduled to fight Schofield Jr., Floyd Schofield Jr., and Schofield Jr. had some interesting stuff going on over the weekend. He missed a couple press conferences, missed the early arrival. Turkey likes to do this thing when for the Saudi Arabia fights, he likes to do like a grand arrival where everybody shows up. They meet at his house. They take pictures and stuff. So he no showed that, no showed the press conference. Um, and then he pulled out. A lot of people are speculating that he was having weight issues. His weight cut wasn't going too well. But he said he fell ill. They tried to play a little bit of mind games with Shakur, but they pulled out a fight. They were able to get Josh Padley to step in. Josh Padley's a young kid, 15-0. He's got 4 knockouts on his record. 15-0, but I think it's early for him. Shakur should win this fight. Shakur is very slick. He's got a really good style. Not a big puncher. Doesn't really have many knockouts. Probably not a guy that you're worried about getting knocked out when you fight Shakur. But he is a guy that can beat you up. He's got very good hands, very good feet. Um, in shape, so he's got a pace he can put on, and he moves well. So that's going to be a tough fight for Padley. Um, I know he was well compensated for taking this fight on week's notice, because like we stated earlier, losses do hurt boxing way more than they do mixed martial arts. So you
Yes.
very rarely see young guys take these chances, but he's going to take the chance. I don't like him, but he's going to take the chance, and he's going to get in there against Shakur Stevenson.
And what do you what? How's it go?
I Like I said, Shakur's not a finisher. I don't know. I haven't seen this Padley kid fight. I don't know how tough he is. Um, I wouldn't expect Shakur to finish him, so I would expect that one to go the distance. But I would think Shakur probably he may even wipe him out.
All right. What's the next fight?
Next is probably I'll go with the second biggest favorite on the card, and that is the middleweight title. That is 160 pounds. And this one, I honestly don't think the odds. I mean, I've only seen both these guys fight once, but I feel like this fight's going to be a lot closer than the odds have it. You have the champ, Carlos Adames. He's 24-1 with 18 KOs. He stopped 4 of his last 6 opponents. His only loss was 6 years ago. He's looked a lot better since then. Like I said, he stopped 4 of his last 6. He's a guy who fights forward, forward, forward. He's an exciting guy. And then he's fighting Hamza Shiraz, who's also very exciting. He's 21-0 with 17 knockouts. He's knocked out the last 10 opponents he's fought. He gave Austin Williams his first loss. He knocked out Dmitry Metronov when he was undefeated. So I can see why he's a bigger favorite. But I think Adamas is a lot better than they're giving him credit for. So I expect this to be a really good fight. But I do see Shiraz as the winner when it's over. And I think both of them are big punchers. You got 18 knockouts versus 17 knockouts. I don't know if this one goes the distance.
Round.
They're world champion fighters, so you have to respect that. So I'm gonna say middle of the fight. Um,
Good.
seven,
Middle of the
eight.
fight rules. Middle of the fight's good enough for me. That's basically what I'm looking for. You think it's gonna be fast? You think it's gonna take a while? You think it's gonna go a long way?
Yeah,
Don't
I
feel
think
obligated.
midway through
All right.
they'll fill each other out early, and then I expect it to kind of be a gunfight towards the middle of the fight.
So I'm sure most people who are listening, Hanson, already know a lot of the details because they're listening because they're fight fans. But for those who don't, it starts at noon, like you said. DAZN is the app that you get. That's the pay per view. It's high quality app that gets you a lot of fighting. I'm not. I'm someone who thinks that pay per view pretty much ruined boxing for a long time because you've got to be in the spotlight all the time to make your, especially in this era, to make your sport continue to thrive. And they just didn't do that. But
Yeah.
this is the way we're going now. And it's the right thing for sports fans. It will be the right thing for sports fans eventually. Um, so I'm all for this one. What's
Yeah, and
next?
at least with the apps, you can go back and watch them, again and rewatch old fights and stuff. So it's kind of, like I said,
Yeah.
it's where everybody's going, but it's kind of neat too.
And if you're a
You
big
got access to a lot.
And if you really love fighting, that app pays for itself over and over again.
Oh, for sure.
And
Yeah,
all of these do, and that's what I mean.
yeah,
So,
yeah, they do.
yeah, if you like a particular sport, those apps are well worth the price of admission. So,
Oh yeah.
anyway, what's next, Hanson?
So next we have a few interim title fights. The first one is the interim light heavyweight, which is 175 pounds.
One of my favorite divisions.
Yeah, you got some good fighters in that division. You've got Joshua Batisi. He is 19-0 with 13 knockouts.
That's
He's
what I
going to
like
be
to see.
fighting. Yeah, he's going to be fighting Caleb Smith. Caleb Smith is 30-2. He's got 22 knockouts. His two losses are to two great fighters. He's lost to Beterbiev, who's in the main event on this card, and he also lost to Canelo back in 2020. So two respectable losses. Been around a while. Um, he's a good fighter. Don't think he's going to win this fight, but he's a good fighter. It's an even fight on the betting odds. Batisi's a close favorite. I do think he wins, and I do think he probably stops Colin Smith. Um, and again, I'm going to say they're both world champion fighters, so I'm going to say middle to late rounds in this one. Maybe later, more later than it is middle. Yeah, I mean, and the next one is just the same. It's the interim heavyweight title, so this will be a fun one. You got Zaylee Big Bang Zhang, and he's going to
Mm,
be fighting Ajit Cabello, or Cabello.
yeah,
Um, Zhang, 27-2, 22 KOs, coming off his knockout of Deontay Wilder in his last fight.
big puncher.
Big puncher. Doesn't really throw many punches, but doesn't really have to. When he lands, he can stop a fight. He's knocked out Joe Joyce twice, who's a very good fighter. Um, both of his losses are decisions, so he's a guy who can take it as well. He's very tough. His
Yeah.
his one of his last losses was to Parker, and that was a fight that was very close. He probably just didn't have the output to win that fight. But Jane, very good fighter, very dangerous fighter,
And
um,
entertaining.
very entertaining.
He's gonna brawl.
Oh yeah, that's the only way he knows how to fight.
That's right.
And then, but the kid he's fighting, very good. This guy's 25-0, 17 knockouts. He's knocked out the last four guys he's fought. His last fight was Frank Sanchez, who was the Cuban Missile. He was undefeated going that fight, had a lot of hype behind him, and Caballero just broke him down and then stopped him in I think the seventh round of that fight. Caballero's a guy who just a ferocious pace for a heavyweight fighter. It's going to be a tough test for Zane. Like I said, Zane's a guy who doesn't like to throw a lot of punches,
Yeah.
and he's going to have to in
He's
this
gonna
fight,
have to.
or he's going to get broken down.
Uh-huh.
Caballero's a guy who will go to the body. Every third punch, it seemed like, goes to the body. Um,
And
you
this
know,
is
he's
why Zing's fights are always uh entertaining.
yeah. I mean, it's not going the distance,
No.
so it's going to end early. I'll be surprised if it makes it past the fourth, fifth round. Um, like I said, Caballero gets in there, so he's a fighter who puts a pace on, and he's not crazy fast, but he's consistent. He stays in you, he stays with combinations. He's in very good shape. In his last fight, when he stopped the guy in the seventh, he looked the same as he did in the first, same type of output. Um, Now, I will say Sanchez was unable to kind of do anything to him. And I think, Zane's the type that his punches may carry more damage if it gets to the middle rounds than Frank Sanchez did. But it's I see Caballero winning this fight. I think his body work is what's going to be. It's going to break Zane down. Zane's also the older fighter. Um, he does have issues with being in shape, and I think the pressure and the punching just combinations that Caballero puts on, I think is going to eventually break Zhang down. Unless Zhang's able to land a bomb. Now he is one of those guys who always has that in the arsenal. He has that fight changing power, that fight stopping power, to where if he lands clean, he can put anybody out. So there is always that there. But Caballero's faced some big punchers before, and I think he's going to be able to stay away from the dangerous shots and get the victory.
Definitely the better fighter. But
Yes,
the
he's
better
got more
fighter doesn't
tools.
always beat the brawler.
You're exactly right. Especially like I said, when you got power like Big
Yeah.
Bang.
Oh yeah. Could be over anytime. All he has to do is catch you.
Yeah, and it just takes one.
That's right. A lot of guys have learned that lesson. By the way, one of my fixes for boxing, Hanson, is 4x4 rings, and this would be a very fun 4x4 fight.
Yeah, oh yeah. This one and the co-main event.
Oh, we'll get to that one. Yeah, you remember when Hearns and Hagler didn't need any any space in the ring, and they just went to the
Yeah,
middle of the fight, and they just punched each other, and whoever was going to go down was going to go down.
that's one of
Those
the
are the
best fights
fights.
ever.
Those are the best fights ever. All right,
Yeah.
what's next, Hanson?
The next is the interim super welterweight. That's 154 pounds, and this one potentially probably the fight of the night. I mean, this one is two warriors. It's going to be a really fun fight. It's the closest fight odds wise. It's Virgil Ortiz Jr. and he's fighting Israel Madrimov. Virgil Ortiz, 22-0, 21 knockouts. Very exciting fighter, very dangerous fighter. He's been a top prospect for a long time coming up. So he's a guy that's always had eyes on him. He's always performed well. Now, in his last fight, he did go down twice against Boacek, but he did get the win against Boacek to get his super welterweight title. Um, and he is fighting Israel Madrimov, and this is a guy who's 10-1. His one loss is to Bud Crawford. That's no knock on anybody. Bud Crawford's one of the best fighters in the world, in my opinion. Probably one of the best. I mean, if he beats Canelo, I think you have to talk about Bud Crawford's maybe one of the top 5 fighters all time. I mean, with his resume being undisputed in 4 weight classes. So
It's a
that
big
that loss is
statement.
no. Yeah, I mean, but that's I mean, he's been very impressive in his career. Plus, the way he beat Spence, who some viewed as a higher ranked pound for pound fighter before that fight. Um, I mean, it was just a masterclass. You very rarely see two top guys fight, and they did, and he dominated. I mean, he looked head and shoulders above Spence. And like I said, if he's able to go in there and do that to Canelo, who a lot of people see as one of the best fighters of this generation, then I think you have to look at Crawford as one of the best ever. His resume sure will say it. Um, but when he fought Madrimov looked good against Crawford. He's a big, strong kid. He fights like that. He likes to fight close, and he couldn't. Crawford didn't stop him. He went the distance with him. So um, this is going to be a really tough fight. He's 10 wins, 7 knockouts, so he does have some power. Like I say, he's a big, strong kid. And Ortiz did go down twice in his last fight. I don't know. This is the one fight I honestly can't pick a winner in. Ortiz is the small favorite. I mean, it's almost a pick 'em on there, um, and I just can't name a winner.
Well,
I honestly don't know.
that's all right because in boxing there's such thing as a draw. So
Yeah,
you're gonna say it's a toss up, and that's okay.
yeah. I
I'm
honestly,
really,
I think
you and I are just starting this segment, and it's been a lot of fun, and it gets better every week. And we're kind of trying to figure things out. But one of the things is I'm looking for you to tell the listeners um, a, an idea of what's going to happen, not necessarily a prediction. Although if you have a
yeah.
prediction, I'd love to hear those too.
Well, this is just going to be a barn burner. I have no reason to think it won't. It's going to be a very exciting fight. Like I said, I think this one has fight of the night potential. Um, if you go through and read the online comments and stuff, it's a fight a lot of people are very excited about. Like I said, because you got two really good fighters in there. They're fighting for a world championship. It's a 50-50 fight. So it's going to be very entertaining.
Um, as you know, but the listeners probably don't. Um, I basically cut off my interest in boxing at about welterweight. Um, if it's there are way too many fights that are artistry rather than brawls, and I'm just a brawl guy. I want to see Evander Holyfield and Lennox Lewis. I want to see those two warriors stand in the middle of the ring and throwing punch. I don't want to see guys dancing around.
Uh,
This card is not going to have any dancers.
the next fight, you're not getting any dancers. I mean, no, I don't think any of them are going to have dancers. Shakur is a guy who moves very well.
Oh, there's nothing
I
wrong
wouldn't
with
call
great
him
movement. Oh, I know. Don't
right.
get me
Yeah,
wrong.
no, it's a yeah. I mean, I enjoy the sweet science part. I
Yep.
like that.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, you got a lot of guys that like to fight on this card. Um, the next fight is, like I said, I'm so excited. You've got Joseph Parker against Martin Bacoli. I can't wait for that fight. Like I said, it's very rare when you have a fill in, and it's just as exciting, if not more exciting, than the original fight. Um, and like I said, I'm with the boxing community on this. Everybody is very excited that Martin Bacoli was able to fill in. The last time we saw Bacoli, he fought Jared Big Baby Anderson, as I talked about in a previous episode before Anderson fought. He came in undefeated. He was a top prospect. A lot of people had a lot of hype on. You heard good things about Anderson, and Bacoli stopped him in 5, knocked him down several times, just put it on him, and it was one of those where, I mean, you could see the power in his punches. He
Right.
was knocking Anderson's head back. I mean, he looked like a Pez dispenser.
You
I
could
mean, he
feel
just
it through
every
the
time he touched
screens.
him, yeah. I mean, just every time he touched him, there was a big reaction, and it was just so eye opening. and then you understand why it was so hard for him to get fights.
That was
He's
George Foreman, by the way. Every one of
and
his punches looked like they hurt.
and he fights exact. I'm telling you, it's the exact. He stands kind of still. He walks you down. He's got that right hand cocked every time. He has the left hand basically down. He uses it to find his distance, and then he shoots the right hand. That's his missile. And it's just like Foreman. I mean, when he touches guys, they just like, I mean, there were times when he touched Anderson, he just crumbled, and it was eye opening. Like I said, it was very eye opening. Been very interested to watch him fight again since then. So we got what we wanted as boxing fans today. He's fighting Joseph Parker, who, like I said, I tip my hat to him. He has everything to lose in this fight. He was in
Yeah.
line for the IBF Heavyweight Championship, and now he's fighting maybe the most dangerous guy in the sport. So big ups to Joseph Parker. He is coming in on a roll. He just beat Deontay Wilder. He beat Big Zhang, as we discussed.
Hmm.
Um, this guy's fought everybody. He's got 3 losses. He did get knocked out by Joe Joyce, um, who I think I mentioned earlier. Zhang had stopped twice.
Yeah.
He also lost to Joshua and Dillian White, but he has beat Andy Ruiz. He beat Derek Chisora twice. He's beat Zhang and he's beat Deontay Wilder. So this is a guy who's been around. Um,
Yeah.
he knows how to fight. Very good fighter. I don't know if he's the power threat that he
Decent
once
power.
was. Yeah, decent power. Nothing like McCauley.
Well, let me tell you, I don't
Um,
have a lot of opinions on a lot of these because you're the expert, but um, I say Parker is like pretty good at everything, but nothing really that's going to scare you.
right, right. He's
Average
he's a good fighter.
athleticism, average to above average athleticism, pretty good size, but not exceptional power. Good power. Everything is
Right.
good. Everything is good.
Yeah. The interesting thing is, I want to see how his chin holds up.
Yeah.
It
Well,
held up against Wilder, but Wilder hasn't looked good in his last few fights. So
no,
who knows what type of
not the
Wilder he
same
fought?
fighter. Not the same fighter.
Right, right. So that's the interesting part to me. Like, is he going to be able to handle these shots? Even Bacoli on short notice. That's one thing about, the heavyweights. I think being a heavyweight kind of makes up for that because his one punching power is so dangerous.
Mm.
He really only needs that one. And like I said, with the Anderson fight, the first time he touched him, he changed the whole fight. Um, and that's just, I think, I don't know. I'm trying to take my fanism out of it.
Mm. You don't have
But
to do that.
I just think Bacoli takes his head off. Um, and I think he does it early. I think he comes in there. Both of them, it's a 2-day notice fight for both of them. Parker's probably going to be in better shape, so I think McCauley's probably going to try to empty the gas tank early, so he doesn't have to, try to carry it for a long fight. Um, and I think if he catches Parker, it'll be over.
Well, I will say this: the one thing that probably is elite about Joseph Parker is his will. He is in the
Yeah,
fight. He is not going to give up on the fight, and he's a hard guy to discourage.
yeah, it
And
is. But
so, Bagoli's going to have to be really good to do that.
yeah, I think, like I said, this is going to be an opportunity for Bacoli. He's had a hard time getting people to fight him. He wants a title. He's been going back and forth with Du Bois, back and forth with Parker. I mean, he wants the title fights. He's had a hard time getting them, but he just got his chance. I mean, he threw himself right in there. He 2 days notice. He's coming in against a guy who was fixing to fight for the championship. So if he wins this, he's right there. He should be fighting for a title next, or he should be in a title eliminator next. So this is a big opportunity, huge risk. Like I said earlier,
Yeah,
huge risk for both guys. And I mean, it's going to be a good fight. I can't wait for that fight.
yeah. He has to think he knows he's going to win that fight. Otherwise,
Yeah,
man, that is such a huge risk, especially when you're in line anyway. You know,
right, exactly.
and I know in boxing, you're never guaranteed it, which is kind of again one of the bad things that's been about boxing. But when you're in line, sometimes the best thing to do is just wait.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah.
All
But
right.
like I said, these guys now, like nowadays, they're going for it more. I think, they got the right guy in charge, and he's giving them a reason to go for it.
All right. Which one's next?
So next is the big one, the
The
main
big one.
event. Yeah, it's for the undisputed light heavyweight championship. It's a rematch with Arthur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol, two of the best fighters in the world, no matter the weight class. These
That's
are two
right.
of your top 10 pound for pound fighters. Um, and it's going to be a great fight. The first fight was a great fight. It went the distance. Beterbiev won the decision. I think that was the correct decision. I think Beterbiev won that fight. He was able to steal some rounds late from Bivol, and I think um, that's where Bivol needs to make his biggest adjustment. I thought Bivol fought a really good fight against Beterbiev the last time, but he did have rounds where he would be winning the round, but then he would get in these exchanges and he would probably stay in the exchange a little bit longer than he needed to, and he would get caught with a big counter, and Beterbiev was able to steal some rounds that way. And I think that's the way Beterbiev fights. He's a guy who he's a seek and destroy type of fighter. He likes to he's on the front foot and he's looking to knock you out at all times. Um, Bivol's more of a slick fighter. He is the one he's going to beat you with his footwork. He's going to beat you with his combinations. He likes to stay outside a little bit, so he's not going to get in and try to brawl, or he shouldn't. He's not going to find success that way, especially against a puncher like Beterbiev. I mean, you got a guy who's 21-0 with 20 knockouts. His only knockout fight he didn't knock him out was the last fight with Ball, who is like I said, a world class fighter. He's 23-1. His only loss was his last fight against Beterbiev. He's only got 12 knockouts. He's only had one knockout in his last 10 fights. So he's not a dangerous fighter. Like I said, he's going to use his footwork and his combinations. He's going to jab. He likes to stay on the outside. That's going to be how he wins this fight. He's going to have to stay on
He
the outside. He can't hang around on the inside. And he's got to counter punch Beterbiev to kind of keep him from setting up on him.
he likes to beat up his opponent over time.
Yeah, he's a really good combination fighter. He showed that in the Canelo fight when they fought. Um, he really fights behind his jab. He'll lead with the jab. He'll counter with the jab, um, and he's three, four, five punches at a time. So he's a big combination guy, and he's slick. For a light heavyweight, he's really slick as a fighter. Like I said, I thought he did really well against Beterbiev the last fight. He just lost a few rounds by taking some big punches later in the round. If he can avoid that, I think he can win this fight. Um, I, I don't know. Beterbiev was coming off of a knee surgery last fight. I have came off of a knee surgery, so I know how long it takes before you do feel 100% again. That could be a difference. This one's hard to pick too. If I had to pick, I am going with Beterbiev again. I think his style, the way he fights, is going to be what wins him this fight again. He's just so much of a hunter out there that he's willing to take some to give some, and he's proved it 21 times that the other guy's just not able to take what he can give. And I think he's gonna be able to do that again. I think the only thing he should do different than the first fight is he's gonna need to start a little earlier. Last time he let Bivol build a little lead, a couple early rounds. He let him get a couple early rounds in the bag. I think this fight he needs to start a little earlier. Like I said, it could have been a knee thing. Like I said, he was coming off knee surgery. Um, so that's the only difference I think he should make. Outside of that, I think his style of fighting um, is a good style to fight somebody like Dimitri Bivol. But it's a 50-50 fight as well, like all these fights. These are two world champions. It's going to be a very good fight. I could see it going the distance. I could see Beterbiev maybe getting a late knockout. But I do think Beterbiev probably wins. And if he does, we could be in line for maybe the biggest fight ever with Beterbiev and Benavidez.
And if Bivol wins, is it guarantee a third fight?
Yes, I think if Bivol wins, you'll get a third fight. And I think if Bivol wins this one, because Beterbiev is the older guy, I think if Bivol wins this one, he'll win the third fight. and then you'll have a huge fight with Bivol and Canelo. They'll get the rematch. Um, well, who knows? Maybe if Crawford beats Canelo, maybe Canelo doesn't make it to the Bivol fight. But there's potential for some really big fights down the line. Like I said, I'm very glad the Turkey guy in Saudi Arabia is in charge. He's putting all these fights together. He doesn't believe in anything that's not a 50-50 fight. So all these fights are really good. And I think we're in line for some really big fights in the future, especially after this weekend. Like I said, I think Benavidez is going to be there. The goal is for him to fight the winner of the main event at some point. So you're looking at another really good light heavyweight title fight down the line with whoever wins this fight.
Anything else interesting this weekend?
Yes, we do have a UFC card. It is in Seattle. Um, you got Olympic gold medal wrestler Henry Cejudo. He's going to be fighting Song Yadong. It is a bantamweight fight, which is 135 pounds. That's a very interesting fight. Cejudo is coming off of a loss against champion Marab. Song Yadong has had a little bit of a layoff. He's a guy who's like been around for a while, but he's had a late surge in his career. He's won some big fights. He is the favorite in this fight. Cejudo, very good wrestler. Like I say, he's an Olympic gold medalist, but he's very small for the weight class. Song Yadong's very big for the weight class, so I think his wrestling's going to be harder against the bigger Yadong. Yadong's kind of well-rounded. He's not as good of a wrestler as Cejudo, but he's well-rounded enough to where I think he might be able to negate some of the wrestling. So I agree with those odds. I think Yadong probably wins this fight. The co-main is a pretty good middleweight fight. That's 180 pounds or 185 pounds. Brendan Allen, he's ranked number 9, and he's fighting Anthony Hernandez, who's number 12. Hernandez is on the rise. Allen's a guy who's kind of been around a little bit. So that's going to be a good fight. Hernandez has dreams of fighting for a title. Like I said, he's on the rise. He's a really good wrestler, a really good grappler overall. He has good jiu-jitsu as well. Brendan Allen's more of a well-rounded fighter. I think Hernandez probably wins that one. And then you got Rob Font on there as well. He's a good boxer. He fights. It's going to be a catchweight fight against Eugene Masamoto. That's a toss-up. Rob Font's a guy that's got really good boxing. He's got good takedown defense to a certain extent. Some of these wrestlers, the better wrestlers are able to take him down, but average wrestlers will struggle with it. I know Gene is a Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy, so I don't know how great of just a straight-up wrestler he'll be. So that one's going to be interesting, especially if Font can keep it on the feet. And that's pretty much all for that card. Not really a strong card, but it's decent, especially for after a great boxing day. You'll be able to kind of catch a few good MMA fights with the UFC card. And that one's going to be on ESPN Plus, and the start time looks to be at 8 o'clock.
All right, Hanson, and you're going to come on the podcast with me no later than Sunday, but probably right after this ends, assuming the old man can stay awake, and talk about a whole day of fighting. This is going to be heaven for you.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Thank you so much to Hanson for doing this. Most of you probably have no idea, but Hanson worked for me when I was the sports editor down in Southern Indiana, and he was one of the most dependable, reliable people who've ever worked for me. But not only that, so much fun to talk to, and that's why I approached him and said, "Hey, can you do 10 minutes a week on combat sports since you love them so much?" And he said, "Sure." And now we're up to 40 minutes. So he's very passionate about it. Of course, when it comes to boxing, I am too. Not the same kind of thing on mixed martial arts, but really love boxing. So if you are a combat sports fan, you're in luck. I think we found your guy. And if you like what you're hearing, please go subscribe to us at YouTube. Even if you're already subscribed at SoundCloud, Spotify, Amazon, or Apple, please go to YouTube and subscribe there. We're going to start doing some cool things and using our YouTube page more. And If you wouldn't mind, tell a friend about the Central Indiana Sports Report. Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media, and I love Susie.